Mr. President.
Republican leader.
Mr. President, there was a time when Democrats opposed government shutdowns. And not just opposed. Democrats were critical of holding government funding hostage to political demands. Our Democrat colleague from Michigan said that funding the government is, quote, Congress's most basic responsibility, end quote. The senior senator from Massachusetts, a leading Democrat, said, and I quote, the least we can do, the bare minimum that we can do, would be to pass a continuing resolution to keep the doors open and the lights on, end quote. And the Democrat leader, just last year, described, and I quote, the chaos and pain and needless heartache, end quote, that a shutdown brings to American families. So what's changed? Why are Democrats in 2025 suddenly comfortable shutting down the government and subjecting Americans to all that chaos, pain, and heartache that the Democrat leader described? Why did Democrats instigate the longest full government shutdown in history? Well, they'd like you to believe that it's about health care. It's not. Republicans have been perfectly clear that we're willing to have a discussion about health care, just not while government funding is being held hostage and all the federal employees that come with that. So if this were really about health care, Democrats would be voting in favor of the clean CR as the quickest way to reopen the government and start the discussions. But that's not where we are. And that's because what's really driving Democrats isn't health care. It's not a desire for negotiations. It's politics and far-left activists who demanded a showdown with President Trump. The real reason we're now in the longest full government shutdown in history is because Democrats are afraid of backlash from the far left if they stand down. One Democrat senator was quoted this week saying, and I quote, people are going to get hammered if they vote for the House-passed bill to reopen the government and keep it funded through November the 21st, end quote. People are going to get hammered if they vote for the clean, continuing resolution. That's from a Democrat senator, Mr. President. Hammered by outside groups, hammered by left-wing political activists. Or take it from one of the organizers of Saturday's No Kings rally who said, and I quote, I'm telling every elected I talk to, that is every elected official that I talk to, millions will be out cheering you on, or they will be calling for new leadership, end quote. Democrats, Mr. President, are keeping the government shut down because they're scared. Scared of a primary from the left. Scared of losing fundraising dollars. Scared that the far left will punish them if they don't appear to be fighting President Trump hard enough. Unfortunately, Mr. President, Democrats' political games are having real consequences. Airport tower staffing shortages have caused thousands of flight delays nationwide. Medicare patients and people in rural areas are dealing with the elimination of telehealth services. Military families have turned to food banks in unprecedented numbers. And things are about to get worse. The nutrition assistance programs that millions of Americans depend on to feed their families are in jeopardy. And tomorrow, federal workers will miss a full paycheck because of the Democrat shutdown. That's right. Tomorrow, federal workers will miss a full paycheck thanks to Senate Democrats. Mr. President, Republicans want to do something about this. We'd love to pass the clean, continuing, nonpartisan resolution, which would pay everyone. Passed the House a long time ago. We voted on it 12 times here now. They continue to, with the exception, 3 exceptions, to block vote against it. 12 times now, Democrats have blocked just paying our federal employees. And Mr. President, It's federal employees all throughout the federal workforce, which literally is millions of Americans. But it's people right here. People in this chamber, people in this building had to stay here night before last, all night, to listen to some Democrats drone on. One Democrat senator read the same poem 4 times. They were here all night not getting paid. 335, exactly, federal employees in this building had to stay here all night, work through the night and into the next day, so they could make some campaign political speech or point in the middle of the night that nobody's listening to, obviously, which is why I guess you read the same poem 4 times, four different times, reading from books, while the people sitting here doing the work aren't getting paid. And so today, Mr. President, we're going to have a vote on Senator Ron Johnson's bill that will guarantee pay for federal employees who are working through the shutdown. The 335 people who had to be here night before last to listen to that. They would finally get paid. It's also people like air traffic controllers, TSA agents, park rangers, federal law enforcement, ICE, Border Patrol, people putting their lives at risk to keep Americans safe. So we'll see what Democrats do. Do they think that people that are working ought to get paid? Well, to date, Democrats have rejected every opportunity they've been given to put the American people ahead of their far-left base. As I said, they've rejected a clean CR now 12 times. A CR, a continuing resolution that would fund the government until November the 21st to give us time to finish the appropriations process. A clean CR, a nonpartisan CR, a CR that has no partisan riders, no policy gimmicks that came over from the House, just clean, just fund the government, straight up, sitting right here at the desk of the United States Senate. 5 Democrats could help us pass it today. We could send it to the President, he would sign it into law, the government opens up, and all the people here and across our federal government would get paid. Last week, the Democrats blocked the bipartisan defense appropriations bill that would have paid our troops. Came out of the Senate Appropriations Committee by a vote of 26-3. Very bipartisan on the floor. Should have been. Usually is. Usually gets 80-plus votes on the floor of the Senate. But they blocked it. Would have paid our troops, defense appropriations bill. So today, we're going to have another opportunity to show whether they stand on the side of hardworking Americans or remain beholden to their far-left base. Now, Mr. President, we've heard Democrats this week criticize Senator Johnson's bill because it would provide pay only to workers who continue to work through the shutdown. They say they want everybody to get paid. I've got great news for them. The clean, continuing resolution sitting at the desk would pay everybody. Everybody. We just need 5 more Democrats to support it. 5 more gets us to 60. Takes a supermajority in the Senate. Democrats are the only thing standing in the way of the outcome that they say they want, which is for everybody to get paid. So, Mr. President, the clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution sits right there at the desk. President Trump is ready to sign it. The shutdown could be over in a matter of hours if just 5 Democrats would agree. But, unfortunately, the shadow of Democrats' far-left base continues to stand in the way. And you don't have to take it from me. As one source familiar with Democrats' thinking told The Hill this week, and I quote, "We would have enough votes to reopen the government if people were not terrified of getting the guillotine," end quote. We would have enough votes to reopen the government if Democrats were not terrified of getting the guillotine. Mr. President, we just need 5 more Democrats to show some courage. This was a statement made yesterday by a Democrat House member. And sometimes people around here say the quiet part out loud. Sometimes it's just kind of subconsciously. And this is what she said. She's a member of the Democrat leadership in the House of Representatives. Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer, but is one of the few leveraged times we have, end quote. Boy, just take that in. Take that in. Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer. But we don't want to give up our leverage. Leverage for what? Leverage for what? Mr. President, we need 5 Democrats to show a little courage. Reopen the government, and let's get to work. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Democrat leader.
Mr. President, we're staring into the abyss of the healthcare crisis here in America. And what is Donald Trump doing as we stare into the abyss of the healthcare crisis? He's flying off yet again to another corner of the world while people's premiums are set to skyrocket here at home. He shut down the government, Trump has, for 23 days, the second longest shutdown ever, by refusing to negotiate with Democrats. He's bulldozing the East Wing of the White House to make way for his own ballroom. His own Justice Department is getting ready to cut himself a personal check to Donald Trump for $230 million out of taxpayer money when health people are suffering in terms of their health care premiums. And then he caught trying to push a nominee with proud Nazi and racist views. And again, we're in the middle of a health care crisis that will decimate tens of millions of Americans. But Donald Trump doesn't seem to want to touch the topic with a 10-foot pole, and has decided to fly off to another country yet again without negotiating with Democrats. Leader Jeffries and I asked him to sit down and talk with us. We said, we need to talk. He refused. Donald Trump would literally rather fly to another country than meet with Democrats to negotiate on health care, because he knows the American people are on one side of the issue and his base, his right-wing MAGA base, is on the other. He's afraid to touch the issue. So he does his version of Johnson's shutting down the House. He flies away. It's hard to fathom someone more out of touch and oblivious to our nation's struggles than the current president. Let's take the ballroom, for instance. This is the image Donald Trump doesn't want America to see. This is the picture Donald Trump told his people to hide from the American people. And do you know what the picture represents? It's not just the desecration of the White House. It shows that Donald Trump is not focused on fixing health care, but rather on vanity projects like this one that don't do anything to benefit the American people. They only benefit Trump and his ego. Donald Trump is telling the American people, no Medicaid for you. The ballroom for me. Americans are appalled at these images. A YouGov poll this week found that 50% of Americans oppose this ballroom project, only 33% in support. To Americans, the image of Donald Trump adding a wrecking ball to the White House is a symbol for what he is doing to the whole country. Yes, this image Americans are seeing, and they don't like it. They don't like it. I asked my Republican colleagues, where are you? But frankly, the East Wing teardown is not the only thing Donald Trump is focused on instead of fixing health care. He is also using the presidency to enrich himself. This week we learned that Trump is pushing his own DOJ to write him a $230 million check because his feelings got hurt after being investigated for criminal wrongdoing. While Americans are agonizing over health care, Donald Trump is using the presidency to reach into the taxpayers' till and put money in his own pocket. Imagine the gall of this president who tells the American people, no health care for you, but you pay me an additional $230 million. Again, I ask my Republican colleagues, where are you? And again, I don't expect Republicans to oppose Donald Trump very often, but they should be outraged by the way he's pillaging the DOJ to enrich himself. And finally, Americans are all getting awfully fed up with the Trump administration's incompetence, corruption, and chaos. And the data shows it. A few days ago, a Gallup poll showed movement you rarely see among the electorate in a short amount of time. Democrats' party ID is now 7 points higher since the start of the year. 7 points higher. It was even with Republicans. Are you a Democrat or Republican? When Trump took office, it's now +7 Democrat. You rarely see that kind of movement for that kind of number so quickly. It should be an immediate red light warning to my Republican colleagues. To quote the pollster Harry Enton, who works for CNN, I was shocked to see how Democrats have gained on party ID per Gallup. Democrats lead by 7 points versus a tie at the start of the year. Looks a lot more like the 2018 cycle than 2022. Indeed, Democrats have gained House seats in all midterms since 1990, when party ID looks like what Gallup has. That's Harry Enton, not me. But you don't need a political genius to understand why these numbers are moving. People see what Donald Trump is making. People see that Donald Trump is making their lives worse on costs, on health care, and on their financial security. We spend so much time here in Washington focused on the day-to-day back and forth. But people back home don't care about the back and forth here in Washington. They care about how much they're paying for groceries. They care about their rising electricity bills. They care about the dramatic increase so many will pay in their health care premiums very soon. What has Donald Trump done while all this is happening, while people are just sitting down at the dinner table on Friday nights and wondering how the heck are they going to pay the bills? He's enacted the biggest health care cuts in American history. He's closing rural hospitals. Americans can see with their own eyes what Trump is doing. And so I say to my Republican colleagues, beware. This Gallup poll is a warning that Americans are fed up with the high costs that go up each week and the Trump administration's incompetence, corruption, and chaos. And it's only going to get worse the more Donald Trump doubles down on this shutdown and on his failed policies. Now, the Johnson bill. That is Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson. Right now, on day 23 of the longest total government shutdown in American history, millions of American families are wondering how they'll make rent, pay their bills, or put food on the table. And what's the Republican response? To hand Donald Trump and his right-hand man, Russ Vought, the originator of the evil, awful Project 2025, to hand Russell Vought even more power to decide who gets paid and who gets punished. Let me make one point very clear. The shutdown is on Donald Trump's back, and the American people know it. They know that Republicans have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and the shutdown is on them. So, Senator Ron Johnson and Republicans are feeling the heat, have come up with this proposal. Johnson and Republicans know, because they're feeling the heat, that the American people know exactly who's in charge. Donald Trump and Republicans. When workers are laid off, when they're furloughed, when they miss a paycheck, America knows who's to blame. It's on Donald Trump's back, and that's why Donald Trump and his allies are pushing this bill. The bill would not reopen the government, which is the only permanent solution to this crisis. And Democrats want to reopen the government as quickly as we can. We want to sit down with Thune, with Johnson, with Trump, and negotiate a way to address this horrible health care crisis. We also want to make sure every last federal worker who has suffered during the Trump shutdown is taken care of. So that's why Democrats are offering two solutions that actually include all of our federal employees, not just the ones the president picks and chooses. Oh, I'll lay you off, I'll furlough you, I won't do you, I like you, I don't like you. That's not the way you govern, but that's how Trump seems to govern. Our bill is an antidote to that awful way that Trump uses when he picks and chooses winners and losers that he likes and hates. The Republican bill is a ruse. It's nothing more than another tool for Trump to hurt federal workers and American families and to keep this shutdown going for as long as he wants. We will not give Donald Trump a license to play politics with people's livelihoods. That's why we oppose this bill, the Johnson bill, because it doesn't end the pain of the shutdown, it extends it. The only way to pay every federal worker is for Republicans to get serious, sit down with Democrats, avert their health care crisis, and reopen the government. I yield the floor.